Introduction. Like it or not, you are a negotiator. Negotiation is a fact of life. You discuss a raise with your boss. You try to agree with a stranger on a price for his house. Two lawyers try to settle a lawsuit arising from a car accident. A group of oil companies plan a joint venture exploring for offshore oil. A city official meets with union leaders to avert a transit strike. The United States. Secretary of State sits down with his Soviet counterpart to seek an agreement limiting nuclear arms. All these are negotiations. Everyone negotiates something every day. Like Molière's Monsieur Jourdain, who was delighted to learn that he had been speaking prose all his life, people negotiate even when they don't think of themselves as doing so. A person negotiates with his spouse about where to go for dinner and with his child about when the lights go out. Negotiation is a basic means of getting what you want from others. It is back-and-forth communication designed to reach an agreement. When you and the other side have some interests that are shared and others that are opposed. More and more occasions require negotiation. Conflict is a growth industry. Everyone wants to participate in decisions that affect them. Fewer and fewer people will accept decisions dictated by someone else. People differ, and they use negotiation to handle their differences. Whether in business, government, or the family, people reach most decisions through negotiation. Even when they go to court, they almost always negotiate a settlement before trial. Although negotiation takes place every day, it is not easy to do well. Standard strategies for negotiation often leave people dissatisfied, worn out, or alienated, and frequently, all three. People find themselves in a dilemma. They see two ways to negotiate: soft or hard. The soft negotiator wants to avoid personal conflict, and so makes concessions readily in order to reach agreement. He wants an amicable resolution, yet he often ends up exploited and feeling bitter. The hard negotiator sees any situation as a contest of wills in which the side that takes the more extreme positions and holds out longer fares better. He wants to win, yet he often ends up producing an equally hard response, which exhausts him and his resources and harms his relationship with the other side. Other standard negotiating strategies fall between hard and soft, but each involves an attempted trade-off between getting what you want and getting along with people. There is a third way to negotiate, a way neither hard nor soft, but rather both hard and soft. The method of principled negotiation developed at the Harvard Negotiation Project is to decide issues on their merits rather than through a haggling process focused on what each side says it will and won't do. It suggests that you look for mutual gains wherever possible, and that where your interests conflict, you should insist that the result be based on some fair standards, independent of the will of either side. The method of principled negotiation is hard on the merits, soft on the people. It employs no tricks and no posturing. Principled negotiation shows you how to obtain what you are entitled to and still be decent. It enables you to be fair while protecting you against those who would take advantage of your fairness. This book is about the method of principled negotiation. The first chapter describes problems that arise in using the standard strategies of positional bargaining. The next 4 chapters lay out the 4 principles of the method. The last 3 chapters answer the questions most commonly asked about the method. What if the other side is more powerful? What if they will not play along? And what if they use dirty tricks? Principled negotiation can be used by United States diplomats in arms control talks with The Soviet Union, by Wall Street lawyers representing Fortune 500 companies in antitrust cases, and by couples in deciding everything from where to go for vacation to how to divide their 7 property if they get divorced. D. Anyone can use this method. Every negotiation is different, but the basic elements do not change. Principled negotiation can be used whether there is one issue or several, 2 parties or many. Whether there is a prescribed ritual, as in collective bargaining, or an impromptu free-for-all, as in talking with hijackers. The method applies whether the other side is more experienced or less, a hard bargainer or a friendly one. Principal negotiation is an all-purpose strategy, unlike almost all other strategies. If the other side learns this one, it does not become more difficult to use. It becomes easier. If they read this book, all the better. The problem. 1. Don't bargain over positions. Whether a negotiation concerns a contract, a family quarrel, or a peace settlement among nations, people routinely engage in positional bargaining. Each side takes a position, argues for it, and makes concessions to reach a compromise. The classic example of this negotiating minuet is the haggling that takes place between a customer and the proprietor of a second-hand store, customer shopkeeper. How much do you want for this brass dish? That is a beautiful antique, isn't it? I guess I could. Let it go for $75. Oh, come on, it's dented. I'll give you $15. Really? I might consider a serious offer, but $15 certainly isn't serious. Well, I could go to $20, but I would never pay anything like $75. Quote me a realistic price. You drive a hard bargain, young lady. $60 cash. Right now. $25. It cost me a great deal more than that. Make me a serious offer. $37.50. That's the highest I will go. Have you noticed the engraving on that dish? Next year, pieces like that will be worth twice what you pay today. And so it goes, on and on. Perhaps they will reach agreement, perhaps not. Any method of negotiation may be fairly judged by 3 criteria. It should produce a wise agreement, if agreement is possible. It should be efficient, and it should improve, or at least not damage the relationship between the parties. A wise agreement can be defined as one which meets the legitimate interests of each side to the extent possible, resolves conflicting interests. Fairly is durable and takes community interests into account. The most common form of negotiation, illustrated by the above example, depends upon successively taking and then giving up a sequence of positions. Taking positions, as the customer and storekeeper do, serves some useful purposes in a negotiation. It tells the other side what you want. It provides an anchor in an uncertain and pressured situation, and it can eventually produce the terms of an acceptable agreement. But those purposes can be served in other ways, and positional bargaining fails to meet the basic criteria of producing a wise agreement efficiently and amicably. Arguing over positions produces unwise agreements. When negotiators bargain over positions, they tend to lock themselves into those positions. The more you clarify your position and defend it against attack, the more committed you become to it. The more you try to convince the other side of the impossibility of changing your opening. 8 position, the more difficult it becomes to do so. Your ego becomes identified with your position. You now have a new interest in saving face, in reconciling future action with past positions, making it less and less likely that any agreement will wisely reconcile the parties. Original interests. The danger that positional bargaining will impede a negotiation was well illustrated by the breakdown of the talks under President Kennedy for a comprehensive ban on nuclear testing. A critical question arose: how many on-site inspections per year should the Soviet Union and the United States be permitted to make within the other's territory to investigate suspicious seismic? Events ? The Soviet Union finally agreed to 3 inspections. The United States insisted on no less than 10. And there the talks broke down over positions, despite the fact that no one understood whether an inspection would involve one person looking around for one day or 100 people prying indiscriminately for a month. The parties had made little attempt to design an inspection procedure that would reconcile the United States' interest in verification with the desire of both countries for minimal intrusion. As more attention is paid to positions, less attention is devoted to meeting the underlying concerns of the parties. Agreement becomes less likely. Any agreement reached may reflect a mechanical splitting of the difference between final positions rather than a solution carefully crafted to meet the legitimate interests of the parties. The result is frequently an agreement less satisfactory to each side than it could have been. Arguing over positions is inefficient. The standard method of negotiation may produce either agreement, as with the price of a brass dish, or breakdown, as with the number of on-site inspections. In either event, the process takes a lot of time. Bargaining over positions creates incentives that stall settlement. In positional bargaining, you try to improve the chance that any settlement reached is favorable to you by starting with an extreme position, by stubbornly holding to it, by deceiving the other party as to your true views, and by making small concessions only as necessary to keep the negotiation going. The same is true for the other side. Each of those factors tends to interfere with reaching a settlement promptly. The more extreme the opening positions and the smaller the concessions, the more time and effort it will take to discover whether or not agreement is possible. The standard minuet also requires a large number of individual decisions, as each negotiator decides what to offer, what to reject, and how much of a concession to make. Decision-making is difficult and time-consuming at best, where each decision not only involves yielding to the other side, but will likely produce pressure to yield further. A negotiator has little incentive to move quickly. Dragging one's feet, threatening to walk out, stonewalling, and other such tactics become commonplace. They all increase the time and costs of reaching agreement, as well as the risk that no agreement will be reached at all. Arguing over positions endangers an ongoing relationship. Positional bargaining becomes a contest of will. Each negotiator asserts what he will and won't do. The task of jointly devising an acceptable solution tends to become a battle. Each side tries through sheer willpower to force the other to change its position. I'm not going to give in. If you want to go to the movies with me, it's the Maltese Falcon or nothing. Anger and resentment often result as one side sees itself bending to the rigid will of the other while its own legitimate concerns go unaddressed. Positional bargaining thus strains and sometimes shatters the relationship between the parties. Commercial enterprises that have been doing business together for years may part company. Neighbors may stop speaking to each other. Bitter feelings generated by one such encounter may last a lifetime. When there are many parties, positional bargaining is even worse. Although it is convenient to discuss negotiation in terms of two persons, you and the other. Nine-side, in fact, almost every negotiation involves more than two persons. Several different parties may sit at the table, or each side may have constituents, higher-ups, boards of directors, or committees with whom they must deal. The more people involved in a negotiation, the more serious the drawbacks to positional bargaining. If some 150 countries are negotiating, as in various United Nations conferences, positional bargaining is next to impossible. It may take all to say yes, but only one to say no. Reciprocal concessions are difficult. To whom do you make a concession? Yet even thousands of bilateral deals would still fall short of a multilateral agreement. In such situations, positional bargaining leads to the formation of coalitions among parties whose shared interests are often more symbolic than substantive. At the United Nations, such coalitions produce negotiations between the North and the South, or between the East and the West. Because there are many members in a group, it becomes more difficult to develop a common position. What is worse, once they have painfully developed and agreed upon a position, it becomes much harder to change it. Altering a position proves equally difficult when additional participants are higher. Authorities who, while absent from the table, must nevertheless give their approval. Being nice is no answer.